Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for attending the webinar this evening. Just to let you know that we will be recording the session. There are lots of people who have registered but can't attend due to the hours, so everything will be recorded as we go along. So just to let you know that is the case. But I will hand over to my colleague Debbie now, and we will get started. If you do have any questions as we're going along, please just use the raise hand button and pop your question in the chat, and we'll try to get to that for you. Alternatively, there is a session at the end of the presentation where you can just ask questions and we'll answer. We'll take 5 or 10 minutes at the end to answer questions there as well. So we'll get started now. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks, Laura. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Working in the UK webinar. Tonight, we're going to be going through the processes of coming to the UK, coming to work in the UK as a veterinary surgeon or a veterinary nurse. We're going to be covering the eligibility and also we're going to be covering the registration process, finding work and securing a visa. So we'll go through all of those parts of the processes of coming to the UK, and as Laura said at the end, there will be a Q&A session for anybody who wants to ask any questions at all. So let's get cracking. We're going to do some introductions first. Who are we? So we're Vetted Recruitment. Myself and Laura created Vetted Recruitment in 2021, and both of us have worked previously for a large veterinary corporate group as well. I was a veterinary nurse for 15 years, and then I helped set up independent veterinary practices in Hertfordshire near London before moving into recruitment, and I was headhunted to head up an in-house recruitment team for a very large UK veterinary corporate group, and that's where I met the lovely Laura. And Laura, would you like to do an introduction? Or I can do yours for you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Yes, well, my background is more the human resources and the employment law kind of side of things. I'm also a registered immigration advisor as well. So we do a lot of work specifically helping people from outside of the UK come to the UK and to navigate that process of visa applications. But as Debbie said, both of us have worked in veterinary recruitment for a long time prior to working in the corporate that Debbie has mentioned. I was working in out of hours, a private out of hours provider. So we've both have done quite a lot of different types of recruitment within the veterinary space, and therefore we know a lot of the practices, a lot of the practice owners, a lot of the corporate groups, and we then have that knowledge of the market that we're able to assist you with.
Thanks, Laura. And obviously as well, a bit more recently, Laura had become an immigration advisor, and we are OISC registered, so we are authorised to give immigration advice, which is a huge benefit to anybody who's thinking of coming to the UK. Because not only can we help you with sourcing roles and job opportunities, but we can also assist you with your visa application process and give you all the correct information you need at the time when you're coming, because obviously the immigration policies change, as we've seen in the UK too. So that's obviously another aspect of the service that we provide to all of our candidates. Everything we do as well as service-wise is completely free to you as a candidate if you wanted assistance from us in moving to the UK. So obviously, so just starting with the sort of eligibility side of things, it is unfortunate that not all vets and nurses are able to come to the UK. So the first things first for you as an individual is to check whether you are eligible. So we're going to just talk about veterinary surgeons first, because you would need to check with the Royal Veterinary College, which is our governing body for our profession here in the UK. They'll give you all the information you need, but you do need to check that your qualification is recognised. This means it must be accredited. Sometimes your university is accredited, but your degree is not, because accreditation is specific to the year of your graduation, to actually the month of your graduation as well sometimes. So it's really key that you check. I think an example is for if you graduated in 2012, but your university didn't gain accreditation, and the accreditation that our governing body used is the EVE accreditation. So if your university did not gain EVE accreditation until 2015, for example, you wouldn't be eligible to register. But it even goes down to the month, sadly. So you can find, for example, that you might graduate in November 2015, but the EVE accreditation doesn't start until December 2015. And so sadly, you can miss out just on a month. It's quite, it is unfortunately the way that it is, because our governing body will only recognise university veterinary schools when they are actually from the point of being accredited and till the point they end, because quite a lot of veterinary schools in Europe can fall off the accreditation and then have to work to get back on it. So it's really important to check your eligibility, because it's not black and white. And so you would need to check your veterinary school on the RCVS website. It's the easiest place to get that. You can also contact them directly as well. And so obviously the same with veterinary nurses, you will have, and there is on the slide here, the links for you to have a look. So you can obviously, and we'll, like I said, this is we're recording this, so we're sending this out, so you'll have this information, but those links will take you to the relevant pages on those websites. The same for veterinary nurses, you'd need to check your eligibility. It's a little bit more complicated for veterinary nurses. There's not really any strict guidance on that. We do have the ACAVEN accreditation, which means that you are eligible to register as a veterinary nurse, but it is only certain schools, so you'd have to have a look, and you can obviously look on the ACAVEN register, but it's much easier to check directly with the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons website, because that's our governing body. All the information is on there, but it's a little bit easier sometimes for nurses, because you can always apply and they will always let you know what steps you need to do to become registered. And it tends to be an easier route. A lot of the time, if you sit the practical and the written exams, for example, you can become registered. You don't need to be ACAVEN accredited. That just means that you don't have to do those exams or sit the theory or the written exams. So they always ask you to send your application in first, and they'll assess it. So it's a little bit more of the grayer area of vet nurses, and there's a more chance, for example, if you have a veterinary nurse qualification, that it could potentially, you could get registered, but you may have to sit exams. There is the same option for veterinary surgeons called the statutory membership exam. So if you're not eligible, that would be the only other way that you could become registered so that you could work in the UK. And we will cover that in another slide in a moment. So that just to give you an idea of how to check your eligibility. And if you need any assistance, even at this stage of the process, then just reach out to myself or Laura for further guidance. We're always happy to help and to advise on that. So veterinary nurses, so as I just covered, so the automatic qualification is related to the ACAVEN accreditation system, and so you can just apply directly to the RCVS to register with them. So it's nice and simple, but it's only for certain veterinary schools or veterinary nurse colleges across within these countries here on the slide. You need to check again with on the RCVS website. You can also check on the ACAVEN website, but it's easier just to check on the RCVS website to see if your school is accredited, and then you can just simply fill in your forms and you'll be registered on the register as a registered veterinary nurse. There are obviously other countries where we have other agreements with, particular sort of around the Commonwealth, and also there are depending, we change these. They're very interchangeable, a little bit like the veterinary surgeon's situation. So again, just check, because for example, we know that Pretoria University in South Africa was always an immediate registration process, but now you do have to sit exams. So it changes depending on, they keep assessing it basically, and it will just keep changing. So you need to check. And like I said, though, it is a little bit more easier as long as you have a veterinary nurse degree. And this is the really important part for veterinary nurses, because there are other veterinary technician qualifications, maybe animal welfare courses, but it has to be a veterinary nurse qualification that you have obtained for it to be potentially eligible if you don't fall into the ACAVIN accredited group. So that is really the sort of main part of it. Then as long as you have a veterinary nurse qualification that you have obtained, then the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons will look to see if you can be eligible to sit the exams. You would never be automatically eligible, as I said, unless you're from an ACAVIN accredited school. So you just need to have a look at that, check with RCVS. And again, like I said, we've dealt with lots of veterinary nurses from all over the world over the years, so we can always advise and give you the best information that we know, and also point you in the right direction of who you need to speak to at the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons to get some better advice or information. If you're not eligible but you're in that category and you're applying to see if you're eligible, you will have to sit the exam. So that is the sort of the downside of that. That is part of what you'd have to do. But the exams are practical and theory. You can do the theory online, but the practical you'd need to come to the UK to do. So a lot of nurses come here with the RCVS's blessing, I guess, as you say, as we would call it, under a period of supervision. You get 12 months granted to you by the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons to come to the UK and to work within veterinary practice while you study to sit your exams. So a lot of nurses tend to do that. They tend to come here although they're not registered, secure a job and work in practice whilst they gain experience, and then sit their exams and become registered veterinary nurses. And that's the most common way, really. You can do it obviously from your own country. You just have to fly here to do the practical exams, and fly home, wait for your results, etc. But a lot of people tend to come and get work within veterinary practice. And we can sometimes assist veterinary nurses who are seeking places for periods of supervision within practice. And again, just reach out to us and we can discuss that directly with you, because it's quite a niche sort of role looking for, and not all employers are open to it, but we do know some, and it would have to give you advice, particularly dependent on your right to work in the UK as well. The exams are held 3 times a year, February, July and November, and the costs are £249 for the theory exam and £434 for the practical exam. So you'd need to make sure that you have that money available to you. Obviously, if you're working in the UK already, it's easier to save that money for those exams. And if you're working in a UK veterinary practice as a nursing assistant or helping the nursing team, you're obviously going to gain a lot more experience, and you're going to get support through your practical exams as well to help make sure you pass, because they're going to want you to become registered veterinary nurse as well. So that's the one good part of being able to come under a period of supervision. And if you need visa sponsorship for that role, you can still be sponsored. It's not the same for veterinary surgeons. It's very black and white, sadly. You have to be able to be registered with the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons to be able to secure a job as a veterinary surgeon. And if you need sponsorship, you need that job. So you can't come here if you're not registered with the RCVS. But the veterinary nurses is a little bit more of a grey area, and there is a workaround for nurses who aren't immediately eligible and need to sit the exam. So I hope that made sort of sense around that. And again, like I said, I think really if there's any veterinary nurses watching this who aren't from an ACAVIN accredited school, then definitely reach out to us and we can sort of discuss the possibilities and the process a bit more with those individuals. So moving on to again, for the automatic eligibility for veterinary surgeons. So if you're not eligible for the RCVS registration, as I mentioned earlier, you've got to sit the statutory membership exam. This is a big commitment because it is expensive, and you've got to ensure that you have sufficient exposure to working in a UK veterinary practice to ensure you're going to have a chance of passing this exam. It is very difficult. It is renowned for being difficult to pass. So we can try to help put you in touch with people that might be able to give you work experience opportunities, but it can be really tricky if you don't have the right to work in the UK. So again, if that's your sort of situation, reach out to us at a separate time, and we can just advise you. And if we can help you, we obviously will. It can be very difficult though. But obviously that's if you're from the countries on the slide here, because of the Commonwealth agreements that we have in place, you'll automatically be able to register with the Royal College as well. And obviously that's Europe. As I said, you need to go, if you're from Europe, you need to check the website and have a look. And the same for any vet school that you come from. Even though these are some of the countries that are eligible, it's really key that you check first that your particular school is eligible for registration at the time that you graduated. So the statutory membership exam. So this is just for those people who are not eligible for registration. You have to sit the statutory membership exam, and this is for you to come to the UK and be able to get registered with the RCVS, and then to be able to come to the UK. To sit the statutory membership exam, you must submit your declaration of intent to sit the form. The deadline is January and expires in September. Exam applications open on the 1st of October and close in February. And written exams are held over 5 days in May, but they can be done remotely again. But the practical exams, same as the nurses, have to be done here in person. The fee for sitting the exam is £2,500. So it's a huge financial commitment. It's not something to go into lightly. And it's not as easy for veterinary surgeons to gain. Well, it just isn't really very possible for vets who aren't registered to be able to get work and get sponsorship potentially to work in the UK like it is with the nurses. It is very different. So you would need the right to work in the UK to see practice, and it's something that makes it very, very difficult to go this route if you're not eligible immediately for RCVS registration. But again, like I said, just have a chat with us if you're not sure. We can give you more guidance, and if we can point you in the direction of anyone that can help you, we absolutely will. So language proficiency, I think this is, Laura, is this your slide? I always get confused.
Yeah, this is me. I will.
I'm going to pass
over from here. No, that's great. So yes, as we said on the slide before that, regardless of whether you're automatically eligible or you're coming through the statutory exam route, in order to register with the RCVS, you must be able to prove your English proficiency. If you are from an English-speaking country, then you have done this automatically. If you are not from an English-speaking country, there are 2 tests that the RCVS will recognise for their registration. The first is the International English Language Testing System test, or the IELTS, that you probably hear it called the IELTS. And this is an exam over 4 parts: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And you are scored out of 9. Now, to pass your IELTS and to be eligible to register, you have to score at least 7 out of 9 across the average of your 4 disciplines. You can score 6.5 in one of the disciplines only, but overall the score needs to be 7. So if you have a 6.5 in speaking and a 6.5 in reading, a 7.5 in the other 2 disciplines, sadly, that would not qualify as a pass for the registration. So you would then need to resit. that test. The IELTS test can be taken from most countries around the world. You will be able to go onto the IELTS website that you can see on the screen there, and book your test online. And once you've sat the test, it usually takes 13 to 14 days for those results to come through for you. And the prices can vary depending on which country you're in. I've done euros here for Europe, as that is where most of the test takers come from, and it's usually between an average of 200 and 250 euros per test. So there are, on the websites that you can see here, there are tests that you can take before the test, and there are practice and revision materials that you can get for free on the website, and we would recommend that you do that before registering to sit the test, just because of that cost that's involved in those resits. The RCVS have also said that they do want to limit the number of retakes for the IELTS test as well. So it's always best to be as prepared as you possibly can before you sit there. The other option that we've not got on the screen here, but should have got another slide for, is the Oxford English test, or the OET for short. It's slightly more expensive, but you can take that test multiple times if you need to. There is, the RCVS have not put any limits on that. It doesn't have the 4 section. Well, it still does. Sorry, it still does have the 4 sections. But if you don't meet the criteria for one of the sections, you're able to just resit that particular section. So whilst initially the cost for sitting the test is higher, resits would be cheaper for you. There is also the added benefit of the OET being a more vocational test. It is designed for doctors, nurses, veterinary surgeons, pharmacists, dentists. It is a healthcare and vocational qualification. So particularly in the speaking sections, it is relevant to consults in practice. So a lot of people are now finding that whilst the IELTS is generally the more popular version, the OET is the more useful, and it can be the easier one to pass as well. With the IELTS, you will go online to book the test, and you will see 2 options. There is the IELTS for the UK VI, and there is the IELTS Academic. Now, the UK VI is what most other professions will use for the standard visa application. So regardless of whether you're working in a profession that needs the English proficiency to get your visa to come and work here, you would need to pass that test, but it would be the UK VI test that you would do. For the purposes of the RCVS registration, it must be the academic version of the test that you sit. And because it's academic, the writing section comes with a lovely long essay that you have to write. And this is generally where people fall down and find the IELTS a little bit trickier. So if your writing skills are not your strongest out of the 4 disciplines, we would always recommend looking at the OET as an alternative. We can offer assistance both with IELTS and OET now. We have contacts for both tests, and we can put you in touch with tutors there that are currently doing online tutoring. One used to run a veterinary practice for the OET, so she used to run a practice, so is very much knowledgeable about the type of work that you'd be doing. So she is great. So regardless of if you are struggling with either test, then get in touch and we'll put you in touch with the tutors there. There is an exemption from that. So if your degree was taught in English, so if you're not an English speaker, but you went to one of the European universities where the English degree is taught, then that is your automatic exemption, and you do not need to sit the IELTS or the OET. You could just go and continue with the RCVS registration. So just wanted to talk now about finding employment. So once you have your level 7 IELTS or your grade B OET, then you can start to you can start to search for your role in the UK. You will need to right, sorry, I've got my slides the wrong way around, but we'll talk about finding the employment and then we'll talk about the visa process. It would have been easier to talk about the process first. So with your, if you don't have the right to work in the UK currently, you might be eligible for other visas that do not require sponsorship. So you might be eligible for an ancestry visa or a youth mobility visa, depending on which countries that you come from. Again, if you're not sure, just get in touch, and with a few questions, we can determine which of those visas you might be able to work with. If it is a skilled worker visa that you require, then that will be a sponsored employment, which means that you will have to then find an employer who is able to offer sponsorship so that you are able to then get that visa. Not all employers in the UK are in a position to offer sponsorship. To offer sponsorship, they are required to apply to the UK Home Office for what is called a sponsorship licence. If they do not have that licence, even if they wanted to offer you a job, they wouldn't be able to do that if you are needing the skilled worker visa and sponsorship to work in the UK. So if you are in that position, because we are immigration advisors, we do have a list of all of the sponsored or the employers that can offer sponsorship within the UK. Get in touch with us and we can talk you through where and who might be available to help you. If you're doing your applications directly yourself and you're finding that you seem to meet all of the criteria that is being asked for in the advert, but you're not getting a response, I would say 8 times out of 10, it's likely that they just can't offer you the sponsorship because they don't have a license. So it won't be anything with regards to your application, but it will be the sponsorship that they are looking. So as if you have got any questions about that, and any employers that are available, then do get in touch and we can let you know that. So we at Vetted Recruitment are one of many recruitment agencies in the UK that can assist you to find work here. Just to give you a little bit of background about how recruitment businesses in the UK work, because not all countries around the world do have them. The way that a recruitment business makes money is by filling roles on behalf of their clients. So Debbie and I, as our business, will have many clients across the UK, independent and corporately owned veterinary practices. And when we introduce somebody to fill their position, they will pay us for that. Because of that, we're then able to give you all of the advice and all of the help, including all of the visa application help, for free of charge. Okay, so that's generally what a recruitment business in the UK is for, and that is why you will never pay for any job seeking services in the UK. We all make our money from the clients that we work with. We always recommend, if you are starting your job search, that you work with one agency at a time. And the reason for this in particular is because in the UK, a lot of the veterinary recruitment agencies or the businesses will have the same clients. So if we are working with one particular group and we are giving you information on that group, and the other agency that you might be working with is also giving you information on that group, what might happen is you might make multiple applications for the same position. This can actually damage the chances of your application being accepted. It does tend to be frowned upon by the employers if they are receiving multiple applications for the same person. So if you're working with an agency, I would recommend that you work with them independently and exclusively for a limited time to see if you can find a role. And you might find that there is nothing in the area that you're looking for. If that's the case, then speak to somebody else who might have a different client by all means, but certainly do that one at a time, just because it is much better for you as a job seeker. It does also mean that you will know who you're dealing with, which applications you're making, and then when you go to interview, you'll be able to be prepared for those interviews. If you're working with lots of different businesses and making lots of different applications, it can get quite tricky, and there have been occasions where people have got confused about which practice that they're interviewing with, and that hasn't really gone down well with the employer. So it's just something to bear in mind if you are looking for assistance with your applications. What we can do for you, we will do a review of your CV. CVs, again, in the UK tend to have a slightly different format to other parts of the world, particularly in the veterinary industry. So we can make sure that the format that you're using or the information that you're providing is going to get you a foot in the door and get you an interview with your chosen practice. And that is something that a lot of agencies will do for you. But given the decades of work that we've done, we've got quite a bit of experience in the CV side of things. The other thing to note, I guess, is I've lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Yes, making sure that if you are working with an agency, you give express permission for them to send your personal details to the practice. So make sure that they tell you which practice you are applying for. And again, if you're working with multiple agencies, you must make sure that you do this, because if the agency just sends your CV out to lots of practices, you're working with another agency who gives you the information, and you choose to apply for that vacancy, you might find that you already have applied, but you just didn't know about it. And again, that multiple application can damage your chances. So if you're working with an agency that won't tell you where they're sending your details, be very, very wary. There are specific data protection laws in the UK that do mean that you have to give permission for your personal details to be shared, and agencies should be telling you exactly where and who they're sharing those details with. So just a little bit of information there about that process. If you did choose vetted recruitment to help you with that, we try to make the process as simple as possible for you. So you can simply send your CV to us at the email address on screen there, or register with our website, vetrecruitment.co.uk/register. We'll contact you then to arrange a video call at a time to suit you. We are a remote-based business. We don't work 9 to 5 in an office. So once you're finished work for the evening, if an evening call is better for you, then that is something that we can arrange. If a call first thing in the morning before you start your shift is better, again, that is something that we're able to do. So our flexibility means that we can offer a call at a time to suit you. It doesn't have to be a video call, it can just be a phone call, but we find that the more that we get to know you and the more that we learn about what you're looking for, means that we get to know you better and get to give you better options for your jobs. So in that call, we will be talking to you about the type of role that you're looking for, whether it's small animal or mixed or farm, whether you want to work in a general practice, whether you want to work in a referral hospital, whether you want to work days or you want to work nights. So all of your all of your preferences, your locations as well, where you would like to work and why, what your clinical interests are. So you might want to work with an exotics caseload, or you might really enjoy dermatology, for example. So these are the types of things that we'll find out for you, and we'll also discuss your salary and benefit expectations as well. We'll then go away and do the work for you in terms of the job search. So we'll talk to all of our clients. We'll have a look to see who else might be hiring but not necessarily advertising, and who can offer sponsorship, as I mentioned before. And then we'll always come back to you with a list of options that we feel match all of the things that we've discussed in our call, and give you that list to choose from. At that point, if you decide that you would like to you'd like to apply for interview for any of those roles, we will then be your representative for that position with the client. So in that's the CV preparation, that's the interview preparation as well. We have interview guides that we can share with you with regards to types of questions that you might be asked, and how to answer them as well. So we'll make sure that you're as prepared as possible for the interview, if you are offered. And at that point, if you are then taken to interview and they would like to make you an offer, we can also help you with the negotiation there as well. So during our discovery call, we'll talk about your expectations in terms of salary. We'll talk about whether you can drive, whether you want to work in a multi-site or a single-site practice, whether you need assistance with your visa costs as well. And sometimes it can be quite tricky at the interview stage to bring up the subject of needing assistance financially with those costs, but that is something that we can do for you. So rather than not mentioning it and getting stuck or feeling really awkward, you just need to tell us at the beginning of the process that you're looking for somebody who can help with that, and then we can take that forward for you. So now moving on to the sponsorship that I should have mentioned before. In April of this year, the minimum salary thresholds across all professions in the UK was increased to £38,700. If you are a veterinary surgeon in particular, this was increased to 48,100. So for nurses, they fall under the general category of all professions. So 38,700. For vet surgeons, it's 48,100. This is based on a 37.5-hour week, because again, most professions in the UK that are generally office-based or not practice-based, that is the standard working week. So the minimum was based on that for most professions. With the veterinary industry, we do tend to work at least a 40-hour week. Therefore, the minimum salaries are slightly higher. So, for example, for a vet surgeon, £48,100 over 37.5-hour week would be £51,307 over a 40-hour week. So you might find, if you're speaking to people and they're talking about there's two different salaries, it's probably to do with the different hours of the week. There are discounts available to those figures if you are under the age of 26. Generally. So there are lots of different discounts in lots of different situations, depending on your profession and depending on your situation. The one discount that applies specifically to the veterinary sector is the age limit. So if you are under the age of 26, you can be paid up to 70% of that minimum salary. And similarly for nurses, if you are under 26, then you can also be paid up to 70% of that 38,700. So it does make it slightly cheaper. What it does mean, sadly, is if you are a new graduate, and you happen to be over the age of 26, you would have to meet the minimum salary, which is based on the average salary of a veterinary surgeon in the UK. But unfortunately, graduate positions do not pay the average salary because they are graduate roles, or they are roles that you would get at the beginning of your career, and therefore they pay slightly, well, they pay quite a lot less than the UK average. So most graduate positions will start at a salary of around about £36,000. And if you are over 26 and you need to be paid £51,000, you can see that there is a difference there. There are lots of people that have been affected by this. This has been fed back to the Home Office by the RCVS, by the British Veterinary Association, and also by ourselves as immigration advisors as well. So there are current reviews in place of those minimum salary requirements, but there is as yet no time frame and no time scale or guarantee that they will be overturned. So we're just working with that at the moment, but we do have a mailing list for anybody that might be in that situation, and as soon as there are any changes or any likely changes in those salary requirements, we will let everybody know. But if you're over 26, you're to meet those requirements of the £51,000, you're looking at around about 4 years of postgraduate experience. Ideally, that's kind of where you would be experience and salary wise. If you have less than that, then we will certainly work with you on an individual basis, because it is still possible. So don't be put off by that. But a lot of it comes down to your surgical experience. If you don't have surgical experience, but you do have a lot of medicine experience, then the best way to move forward is to consider medicine only positions which are available. But if you're looking to develop your surgery skills and you don't yet have them, meeting that minimum salary requirement, if you don't have those years of experience behind you, can be a bit tricky. But again, this is something that we'll work through with you during that discovery call, and we will discuss each individual basis with you as required. So to get your visa, you need to have got your OET or IELTS results. You use this to register with the RCVS. You are offered a position with an employer that has a sponsorship license, and they can then issue you with a certificate of sponsorship. And a certificate of sponsorship is a 12-digit code, which you will then use to start that application process. And it usually takes, if you're applying from outside of the UK, it usually takes about 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm just going to run through here quickly the costs involved. So when I'm talking in the previous slide about whether or not you're able to meet these costs yourself, if they are too high for you, have that conversation with us and we can broach that with the practice for you. But once you are applying, at the end of your application, you will be asked to pay upfront fees. The first of those is the immigration health surcharge, and this is £1,035 per year, depending on how long you are applying for your visa. Most people apply for a 3-year visa, so that would be just over £3,000. And the immigration health surcharge is payable for your free use of the National Health Service here in the UK. So it means that you pay up front, but you will get free access to healthcare at the point of treatment for you. So that's something that you will pay before you arrive in the UK. The application fee for a 3-year visa is £719. It does increase to just under £1,500 if you apply for a 5-year visa. There are administrative charges of around about £100 as well. And finally, you will be asked to prove that you have a certain amount of money in your bank account up to 3 months before you apply for your visa. So you will be asked to provide your bank statements to prove this. And the figure that you must have is £1,270. And that is really to make sure that you can pay for your rent for at least a month here in the year, rent or your accommodation. You can pay that for at least a month here in the UK until your salary is paid into your bank account for you. So for a lot of people, getting the £1,270 is enough of a burden, and they find that finding the other £3,000 and the £719 for the fee is a little bit harder, and therefore they look for assistance with that. Most employers will help you with it. And what they will do is they will ask you to repay anything that they help. They will pay the fee for you, but they will ask you to stay with them in the practice for a number of years, for example. And if you leave before that term is completed, you would repay a little bit back of the money that's been paid for you. Some will ask you to pay upfront the fees yourself, but then as soon as you have started in practice, they will give you that money back as well. So you might just need a loan from family members, for example, to be able to pay that, and then you'll get that money straight back. So depending on who you apply to, there are different ways and means of having that paid for. But again, if you're working with us and we're representing you, we'll give you all of that information at the time of application. So just wanted to touch briefly on new graduates as well. So everybody now, if you are graduating in the UK or if you're graduating outside of the UK and you have 1 year or less of practical experience, the RCVS at the point of your registration will ask you to sign a declaration to say that you will complete the Veterinary Graduate Development Programme, or VET-GDP for short. So this is a programme that you will get up to 24 months to complete, and it works like a portfolio of different procedures and different training that you'll undertake in practice with a trained mentor who is there to help you to make sure that you get the relevant support that you need at the start of your career or at the start of your practical career here in the UK. So it's a really positive thing. And you can find out more about it on the website that's on the screen there. But to enable you to complete it, you must find a job where there is a registered VET-GDP advisor in practice who is able to help you complete the programme. So if you are in that position, and again, like with the sponsorship that I mentioned before, if you're making direct applications and you're not getting any responses, it might be again that the practice that you're applying to doesn't have a VET-GDP advisor that's registered to them. And therefore, if you do have that year or less than a year's experience, they're not able to support you through the VET-GDP programme and the RCVS. And if you don't complete, if you're told by the RCVS that you need to complete the graduate programme and you don't complete it, it can risk your re-registration. You'll have to re-register with the RCVS every year to continue to practice. And if you don't complete the programme, then that can cause problems for you. So you need to make sure that you have an advisor. And again, we can find you we will have a list of all advisors registered in the UK. So if there are particular roles that you are interested in, we'll be able to tell you whether or not they're eligible for that. So just quickly go back there and mentioning internships as well. Internships in the UK do tend to work a little bit different to mainland Europe, where they're seen more as a training programme, sometimes before graduation and sometimes just after graduation. Internships here are training, but they are a route to specialisation. So it's not additional general practice skills that you will learn in an internship. It is going to be preparation for going into a specialist field such as surgery or medicine or dermatology or oncology, for example. And these positions can be very competitive. And for that reason, a lot of employers ask that you do have at least 1 year of experience in general practice before they accept you onto the internship. The problem that that poses is because of the minimum salary requirement. If you are over the age of 26 and wanting to do an internship, the salary that you need to earn is higher than the salary paid for an internship. There is another way that you are able to get around this, and that is by doing an internship in an educational establishment such as a university, where you might gain a qualification once you complete the internship. So again, it's not a case of if you're over the 26, you can't do an internship, but you have to be quite picky about where you apply. So again, if that is something that you are concerned about, then we can work with you on an individual basis to guide you as to which internships might be suitable for you. So that was the new graduates. And then finally, we just wanted to talk about the relocation assistance that we can offer. We will help you right until you are placed in practice and you start your job. And then for a number of months after that, we will always check in with you to make sure that you're happy in your new position. But moving country and starting a new job is something that both Debbie and myself have done when we were younger. We know it's quite a stressful process, and we are here to help you get through that as stress-free as possible. So we do have a Moving to the UK guide that we can offer, and this just provides you details of all of the important administrative tasks that you will need to complete once you start to work here in the UK. And we can also provide you information on the cost of living, depending on your chosen location. And we can show you how that compares. If you're looking at several different locations across the UK, we can show you how that compares depending on where you want to be, so that might inform your choice. So if you have a particular role in two different parts of the country and the position is very similar, it might be the cost of living that makes that decision for you. So that is information that we're able to give you as part of that consultation process as well. Some roles in the UK do come with accommodation as standard, most don't. So if you are needing help with accommodation, that's also something that we can look at for you. Sometimes practice will be very proactive in helping you source that. If they're not able to do that, then again, get in touch with us and we can show you where to go in your chosen location to find somewhere to stay. So it can be, as I say, it can be a stressful process. It doesn't need to be. We'll be there for you throughout that until you get settled. So that brings us to the end of the information that we wanted to provide for you today. But there's not been any hands up so far, nothing in the chat, but wondered if anybody has any questions. We've got a few minutes left, so if there is anything you want to answer in the chat, then please go ahead. If it's not something that you feel comfortable doing just now, don't worry. You can email us at contactus@veterinary.co.uk. We also have a Facebook group for people specifically interested in working in the UK. And again, once you get the recording here, you can just copy and paste that link into Facebook, and that will allow you to request to join the group. Any job opportunities that we have, any updates, any news, any information or any tips and tricks, we will be posting into that Facebook group there. So we hope that you will join us. And we also every month provide you with a monthly newsletter that we'll send out via email. This will give you a monthly breakdown of all of the sponsored roles that are available, or the best sponsored roles are available in the UK for that month. We always include a blog, which will be, some information with regards to interview techniques, or job searching or networking. Lots of different things, that information that we'll send out to you there. And you can again subscribe via the website through the registration button, and we'll get that out to you on a monthly basis.
We do have a question from Claudia. She has said that she's a new graduate vet nurse and she's graduating in RSA. Do we need to take any exams to be able to work in the UK? Claudia, I'm not quite sure where RSA is. Is that South Africa? I think the best thing, Claudia, is to pop us an email to the contact us at vettedrecruitment.co.uk email address that's on the slide, and just explain and give us the name of where you're graduating from, just so we can give you the correct advice, because I'm not totally sure where you're at, where you're in, what country you're in at the minute. But yeah, pop us an email and then we can help you, like I say, because it's a little bit complicated for veterinary nurses. So if you email us, we can give you the correct information. Any other questions, anybody? Anyone? No, nothing else? Are you sure? Like as Laura said, obviously you can just reach out to us at any time, and we'll respond to any questions that you have. Just make sure you pop us an email, this email address on the slide here, and we will be back in touch with you straight away with any assistance. And we hope to meet you or speak to you at some stage in the future. But I think that's us for the evening, Laura, by the looks of things.
Yeah, I think there might be somebody typing a question. It might be typing a question. So I just want to leave it just a couple of minutes. No, there isn't. There's nothing come through. So sorry about that. No, that is us. Thank you so much for your time, and for everybody that's watching this tomorrow when we send out the link. If you do have any questions, get in touch with us. But the recording will be on its way to you shortly.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.